How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down all of the events for the month of January in Pokemon Go. So with that being said, let's jump straight into it. So first of all, let's go over the current season bonuses. We're going to get 2 free raid passes every single day. These are going to be the orange passes. Now keep in mind, these are going to be use it or lose it passes, so if you don't end up using them, you won't actually get to keep them. But you can actually hold on to one in your inventory, which you can carry over to future days. Now on top of that, we're also going to get extra Stardust from Rocket Battles, both from Grunts as well as Leaders, and I'm pretty sure Giovanni as well. We're also going to get extra Stardust from gifts, and that should pretty much conclude the current season bonuses. So really the main one here is going to be those 2 free raid passes every single day. Very, very nice. And then honestly, the Rocket Battles are pretty good for those of you that do like to hunt down those Shadow Pokemon. Speaking of Shadow Pokemon though, let's go over the Shadow Legendary Pokemon that are going to be available in rotation. We'll first start off with Giovanni. So currently we are going to have Shadow Heatran available as the Legendary from Giovanni. This did come into rotation on October 8th, so it has been a while since the last Team Rocket takeover. But good news here, the next Team Rocket takeover is going to be starting on January 15th, which means if you do want to get yourself a Shadow Heatran, or at least you haven't still decided if you want one or not, you're going to need to use a Super Rocket Radar before that date to fight Giovanni and then claim your Shadow Heatran. If you use your Super Rocket Radar after that date, you're going to get the new Shadow Legendary Pokemon, which, I mean, some of you guys may want. We have no idea what that is just yet, but keep that in mind. Now, in terms of you who are still undecided, Shadow Heatran is going to be a great fire-type attacker for the raid/gym meta, and it does also rank pretty well in the Open Master League if you do end up getting lucky with that hundo. Shadow Heatran will want to have its signature moveset Magma Storm, though, in an ideal situation, which is going to require an Elite TM and Frustration Remove. Now, if you don't want to actually use an Elite TM to get Magma Storm on your Shadow Heatran, you could also just go with Flamethrower as a secondary option. That one's still pretty good to run. So anyways, you guys basically have 15 days to decide if you want to get yourself a Shadow Heatran. Otherwise, that is going to be your last opportunity until we get it in Shadow Legendary Raid Battles, which probably isn't going to be for a while. Speaking of Shadow Legendary Raid Battles, so let's talk about the next Pokemon in rotation, which is going to be Shadow Registeel. We are going to have Shadow Regice leaving us, and Shadow Registeel is going to be making its way over the weekend. These are also going to be in person only, so when it comes down to actually getting groups together, I would strongly recommend checking out your local campfire or Discord meetup groups. Now, in terms of meta relevance though, Shadow Registeel is actually much worse than its regular counterpart for PvP, which is where its main relevance lies, in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League metas. You're also going to want to have the Legacy moveset Zap Cannon, which is going to require an Elite Charge TM. Now, with that being said, there is one upside to this Pokemon compared to its regular counterpart, and that's going to be the ability to get a lower attack IV spread straight from raids. Since the IV floor from Shadow Legendary Pokemon is going to be 666 from these raid battles, it's a much better opportunity for you, opposed to the typical IV floor from Legendary Raid bosses, which is going to be 10-10-10. I'm pretty sure I also forgot to mention this, but Shadow Registeel from these weekend raid battles can also potentially be shiny, so you could get yourself a Shadow Shiny Registeel, which would be pretty cool to have. Next up, let's take a look at the Research Breakthrough Pokemon. We're going to have Alolan Raichu, Pancham, Furfrou, Hisuian Avalugg, Jangmo-O, and Frigibax. Now, every Pokemon here except for Frigibax has a potential to be shiny, and you also have a chance to get a remote raid pass from these if you have no more than 2 in your Pokemon bag, although that is pretty rare. Next up, let's talk about the legendary Pokemon that are going to be available in raid battles. Shiny forms are going to be available for each of these legendary Pokemon, so keep that in mind, and the rotation cycle is going to be from 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. local time, so as we're going through the dates, make sure to keep that in mind as well. Alright, so first of all, we're going to continue to have Giratina Altered Form until January 4th. This Pokemon is super good to have in both the Ultra League and Master League metas. Now for the Ultra League, you want to have typical PvP IVs, which is going to be like 0-15-15, so you will ideally want to mirror trade this with somebody else, and this is because the floor IVs again from raids are going to be 10-10-10, so you won't be able to get like exactly 0-15-15, you'll probably get something like, I don't know, 5-15-15 if you're super lucky. That's probably like the best IV spread you guys can get from trades. That is if you trade with a best friend. If you trade with somebody who has like lower friendship than you can go lower, but honestly the amount of Stardust it costs to do those trades is a bit too expensive, so I wouldn't really recommend that. But for the Master League, you will ideally want the hundo, so this makes raiding for it a little bit easier because you can't actually roll that. You don't have to worry about trading it. Now Giratina does also have access to its signature moveset Shadow Force, but you won't need to run this in either of the metas. You can instead just go with Shadow Claw plus Dragon Claw and Ancient Power, so it is pretty nice that you won't have to worry about giving it the Elite TM. This version of Giratina also shares the same candy as Giratina Origin Form, which is really good to use as a ghost type attacker for the raid/gym meta, so if you don't really care that much about PvP, but you still want to actually power up a really good ghost type attacker in the future, you definitely want to raid this for the candy alone. Now following Giratina Altered Form, we're going to have Palkia from January 4th to January 16th. Palkia Origin Form is much better than its regular counterpart, which is going to be available, so this was just in raids back towards the end of November, so hopefully most of you guys were able to get one. Ideally with Spatial Rend, but honestly the raids to get that moveset were pretty bad, so if you weren't able to get it, then, you know, try to trade with somebody else to get your hands on one with Spatial Rend. I mean, I feel like that moveset is really important for Palkia Origin Form. It's not exactly the same Pokemon without it, that's for sure. Same can be said for Roar of Time on Dialga Origin Form. That being said though, Palkia Origin Form is easily one of my favorite Pokemon in the game currently due to its amazing relevance in pretty much everything. So when it comes down to rating just this version of Palkia, I would just use your free passes, stock up on candy to invest into your Palkia Origin Form, and if you don't currently have access to a Palkia Origin Form with Spatial Rend with good IVs, I mean still, just, you know, hold on to the candy, you're gonna get one eventually at some point in time. And again guys, we have the seasonal bonus of 2 free orange passes to use every single day. You can just go out there, host your own raids through PokeGenie, and you should be able to get the raid support on this guy. But if it wasn't already clear, I would not recommend investing into regular Palkia, just hold on to the candy for your Palkia Origin Form. Next up, we're going to have Deoxys in both its attack and defense forms available from January 16th to January 24th. So when it comes down to both of these forms, Deoxys attack is not really worth paying attention to unless you just need the shiny, but Deoxys defense form used to be a great Pokemon to have for the Great League and Ultra League formats in PvP. But these days it ranks above the top 200 in both league formats, so it's not really that meta relevant anymore. That doesn't mean that it can't become meta relevant again, so you know, if you wanted to hold on to some candy, farm the raid bosses for some more extra large candy, that wouldn't be a terrible idea. But in terms of playability, I mean, in the current meta, it's just not that good. And then finally, we're going to have Dialga in its regular form from January 24th to February 6th. So once again, just like Palkia, Dialga Origin Form is much better than its regular counterpart. And basically, I would just raid this one for candy if you just want to invest into your Dialga Origin Form with Roar of Time ideally. If you don't have it, you know, still just raid the Pokemon, get the candy, hold on to it until you're able to get one from trades, hopefully, and then you can go ahead and invest from there. Otherwise, there isn't like a huge incentive to invest into Dialga unless you end up getting the Hundo somehow, in which case it does rank a little bit worse than the Origin Form, but it's still meta relevant in the Master League, and you can also use it as a Dragon type attacker. So all things considered, I mean, if you are able to, you know, get that Hundo just doing these raids to get the candy, well, that is still kind of a win. So compared to Palkia, I wouldn't recommend investing into it, but for Dialga in its regular form, that is a little bit of a different story. Dialga used to have a lot of relevance as a Master League attacker before the Origin Form came out, and I think this is why it's still pretty good to have. It's not going to be as good as the Origin Form, but given how difficult it is to get that Pokemon with a good IV spread and, you know, the special exclusive moveset, which you can't delete TM by the way, you know, if you end up getting the Hundo here, I would recommend investing into it. I think it is worth it. Legendary Pokemon out of the way though, let's take a look at our Mega Raid rotation next, and shiny forms will be available for each of these Mega Pokemon. Same time rotation as well, 10 AM to 10 AM local time. So we are going to continue to have Mega Abomasnow until January 4th. This is one of the top Ice-type Megas in the game for raids, and it also has a dual typing of Grass and Ice, which makes it great to have for candy farming during certain events. In my opinion, Mega Abomasnow is a super underrated Pokemon, so strongly recommend going out there and doing at least 1 to 2 of these raids. Now following that, we have Mega Lopunny from January 4th to January 16th. This has the dual typing of Fighting and Normal, so again, another great Pokemon to have for candy farming during certain events. That's a really good combination of typing. Now in terms of its relevance as a Fighting type Mega though, there are better options out there like Lucario and Heracross, so I wouldn't really power this Pokemon up past level 30 if you decide to invest into one. Next up, we're going to have the new Mega Pokemon available. That's going to be Mega Gallade. So this is going to be a brand new Mega, guys. It's long overdue. I feel like we've had the Gallade Shadow in game for months now. This Pokemon is going to be available from January 16th to January 24th. It's also going to have a special Raid Day event a little bit before this rotation. Now, in terms of its meta relevance, right, Mega Gallade isn't really that good as a Fighting type Mega or even as a Psychic type Mega. It's only slightly better than Mega Lopunny, so I think the main advantage here is really those candy bonuses, right? Because it's going to be a dual fighting and psychic type Pokemon. A pretty rare combination. We do actually have that as Mega Medicham as well, so maybe I take that back. But still, if you don't have Mega Medicham, definitely make sure to get your hands on Mega Gallade for those candy bonuses rather than as an attacker. But of course, if you don't have Mega Lucario, if you don't have Mega Heracross, and I would probably say the same thing that I said with Mega Lopunny, power this thing up to level 30, and then maybe be a little more cautious on powering it up further. Actually, now that I think about it, if you just powered up one for the Open Ultra League and then you use that as your Mega Evolution, that should be around like level 34-ish if I'm not mistaken. Probably in that range anyways. And so you don't really need to power up a hundo, just use your Ultra League IV spread and knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. I think that'd be the best way to save resources and also have a decent fighting type Mega Attacker if you don't already have Mega Lucario or Mega Heracross, or even Mega Blaziken for that matter. Now what's funny is that we're actually just going to have a whole month of fighting type Megas because Mega Medicham is coming up next from January 24th to February 6th. So once again, same typing as a Mega Gallade here. It's not really a consideration for a raid attacker, but its regular non-Mega form is actually pretty good to have in the Open Great League. So basically when it comes down to Medicham, I would just build one for the Open Great League. It's going to be one of those super extra large Pokemon that powers up to level 50 exactly with the red IV spread, and then you can just use that one as your Mega Evolution as well. That is currently what I've done with my Medicham. I mean, I built one for the Great League. It's also my functioning Mega, which again, I don't really use as a Mega attacker, but I use it for candy bonuses quite often. So basically when it comes down to it, you have the option between 2 Pokemon that can also function as PvP attackers, and I would strongly recommend building both of those PvP IV spreads and then using that as your Mega Evolution. If you guys have any additional questions, let me know in the comment section down below, but now let's go through some additional information regarding the Mega Evolution. This is more just some general information for any new or returning players watching. So basically, you only need to evolve these Pokemon once before getting access to their cooldown period moving forward. After that, you can just walk them as your buddy to earn more energy that way. It's completely free. Now, this typically requires about 1 to 2 Mega Raids on average for the initial energy, and then after that, like I said, you can just walk them from there. You're also going to get more extra large candy when your Pokemon gets to Mega Level 3, which is unlocked after 30 days of Mega Evolution. And then finally, on top of all of that, you're going to get guaranteed charge TMs when you complete these Mega Raid bosses. So it's pretty good. Honestly, there's a lot of wins here just from doing these Mega Raids. You get the energy, you get the guaranteed charge TMs. And guys, we do have a Team Guraka Takeover event upcoming in the middle of this month. If you don't have that many charge TMs, make sure that you are doing these Mega Raids. Next up, we do have raid hours, which are going to be taking place every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. local time. Typically, whichever legendary Pokemon is currently in rotation is going to be the one featured during that respective Wednesday. So, for example, we have on January 1st, Giratina Altered Form. On January 8th and January 15th, we have Palkia. On January 22nd, we have both Deoxys in its attack form and defense form. On January 29th and February 5th, we have Dialga. Now, for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with how these raid hours actually work, most gyms are going to have these featured Pokemon appearing, and the raids are also going to reset after about 25 minutes, which means you can hit the same gyms again at the half-hour mark. It's pretty convenient if you only have a few gyms around you. Now, like I mentioned earlier with the Shadow Legendary Pokemon, I would also strongly encourage you guys to check out Campfire for any local meetups before this event. Usually there are some postings so you guys can actually get some groups together. Otherwise, when it comes down to using Pokegenie during these raid hours, it doesn't really work out as well because you have so many people trying to host lobbies. I mean, if you're trying to get like remote invites, that's pretty easy, but if you're trying to host these raids from your local area with not that many players around you, it is a bit more difficult. Typically, the best time to host through Pokegenie is right when a raid boss comes into rotation because that's when everybody wants it. Usually after like the first day or two, it does get a little bit harder, or at least a little bit longer in terms of the queues. Now following that, we have max battles to go over, which I know not everybody is super enthusiastic about, but Niantic seems to be really doubling down on these. I mean, we have so many different rotations to cover just for max battles, so if you don't care that much about max battles, just skip ahead to the next section on the timestamps down below, but if you do, let's go through these rotations right now. So first of all, the current rotation is going to last until January 6th. This is going to include the Dynamax Gen 8 starters, Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble, along with Cryogonal and Krabby. So in terms of the Gen 8 starters, these starter Pokemon were released a few months ago in Pokemon GO, and they're going to be getting G-Max forms in the future with their special movesets during the Calm Days. Although given that we got a Gen 9 starter for the Calm Day in January, I don't think we're going to be getting the Gen 8 starter Calm Days until next year, so we still have a bit of time until those get released. But still, if you guys don't have at least 400 plus candy on each of these Pokemon, you should still be doing these to build up your resources, not so much about like, you know, getting really good IV spreads or anything like that, just candy farming. So if you have all the candy that you need, don't worry about this, but if you don't have enough candy on these Pokemon just yet, you're definitely going to want to stockpile them right now, because when it comes down to those G-Max forms, I know for a fact I'm going to get comments about people telling me I don't have enough candy to evolve them, I don't have enough candy to give them their movesets, I don't have enough candy to power them up. You get the point. Have at least 400 candy on each of these Pokemon, and then you can just kind of stop raiding them completely, and I think you're going to be fine. Now, in terms of Cryogonal, if you guys weren't able to get G-Max Lapras, this is going to be your next best Ice-type option for the Dynamax raid battles. In terms of difficulty though, this is going to be a 3-star max battle, but you can solo it with the right Pokemon. I did this solo recently, and honestly, it was really difficult. I think it was more difficult than solo Beldum, because I actually used my powered up Pokemon with their upgraded max moves and stuff, and honestly, just the moveset that Cryogonal has is pretty deadly against everything that counters it. So Definitely a really difficult raid boss. If you guys want me to put out a solo guide, I can do that on my second channel or my clips channel. When it comes down to a raid challenge, I think Dynamax Cryogonal is a really fun Pokemon to go up against. So if you guys haven't actually soloed it yourself and you want to give it a go, definitely recommend giving it a try. Otherwise, you know, if you can't get this done with one player, well, 2 players should be pretty easy to get it done. Now, finally, we do have Dynamax Krabby, which is also going to have a G-Max form eventually released for Kingler in the future, which is going to be the evolved form of Krabby. So basically the same thing that I mentioned with the Dynamax Gen 8 starters. If you don't have enough candy for this Pokemon, like at least 200 to 300, I would recommend just doing these raid bosses, or max battles I should say, to build up your resources. Otherwise, there is no reason to invest into this right now. Don't power up Krabby. It's not like gonna be good for anything. You can't change Dynamax to G-Max, so there's really no point. But again, like having the candy ready for that Gigantamax Kingler when it is eventually released is going to be the main objective here. Now following that, we have 3 more rotation cycles to go over for max battles. The next one is going to be available from January 6th to January 13th. We're going to have Dynamax Machop, Dynamax Ghastly, Dynamax Wooloo, Dynamax Krabby, and Dynamax Cryogonal. So 2 of these Pokemon are going to be repeats. We're not going to repeat the information on them. And then we have Dynamax Wooloo, which is kind of whatever, not really a Pokemon I'd recommend getting anymore. But we have Dynamax Machop and Dynamax Ghastly. So let's talk about those for a second. So basically, just like Krabby, Machop, when evolved into Machamp, is also going to have a G-Max form in the future. So there isn't really like any reason to do these unless you just want to have temporary fighting type attackers for the Dynamax raids. During December, Machamp was pretty useful against Gigantamax Lapras, but you know, the same could be said for Venusaur and Toxtricity. So when it comes down to it, if you have those other options, I would not really worry about this too much unless you need to farm candy on it. Now when it comes down to Dynamax Ghastly, Gigantamax Gengar was released a few months ago during October, but if you weren't able to get it, you could grab some Dynamax Ghastly and mirror trade them with a friend for a cheap final evolution to have as a ghost type attacker. This is actually what I did before we had a Gigantamax Gengar in rotation. Basically outside of that, I wouldn't worry about these too much. I mean, there's no way to turn your Dynamax Pokemon into Gigantamax Pokemon, so it makes doing these 1-star max battles kind of pointless unless you just need the candy. For the next rotation, this is going to be taking place from January 13th to January 20th. We basically have all the same Pokemon except we're going to swap out Wooloo with Squirtle. So when it comes down to Squirtle, is this Pokemon worth focusing on? So Gigantamax Blastoise was released a few months ago, kind of similar to Gengar, so pretty much the same as the others, guys. Only do these if you have at least 400 candy saved up. That way you can invest into your Gigantamax Blastoise when you eventually get it. Otherwise, I would not worry about this too much at all. The next rotation cycle is going to be from January 20th to January 27th. We're going to have Dynamax Charmander and Dynamax Beldum, along with a Mystery Dynamax Pokemon, and then we have Dynamax Cryogonal and Scorbunny, which are going to be repeats. So Dynamax Charmander. Well, Gigantamax Charizard, similar to Blastoise, was released a few months ago, so basically the same as the others. Only do these Pokemon if you don't have at least 400 candy saved up. You could also do these if you still don't have the Hundo for the Mega Evolution, which is actually one of the best fire-type attackers to have in the game right now for raid battles, so that could still be, you know, worth going for. Now we do have Dynamax Beldum, guys, which when evolved to Metagross is one of the best Dynamax Pokemon to have in the entire game. It should absolutely be a top priority to hunt, even if you can't get Meteor Mash on it right away. This isn't nearly as important for max battles, but you would ideally want to have it if you plan on using Metagross in Legendary Raid battles, or Master League, or even Rocket battles. Meteor Mash is pretty important in all those scenarios, but just for max battles, I mean, not that big of a deal. Now you can also use Metagross as a Psychic type attacker as well in max battles, which it really just depends on the boss, I would say. Even if you already have a Metagross built, I mean, unless you have the Hundo, I still think it is worth using your MP for that potential Hundo. Beldum is going to be a level 3 max battle, but it can be soloed quite easily with minimal resources, and if you guys want to actually know how to do that, then check out my full guide video, which is going to be linked on screen right now. Basically, outside of that, though, we do also have the Mystery Dynamax Pokemon, which I really have no idea what that could be. I mean, if you guys have any predictions, let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe somebody had posted leaks, I just haven't seen them by now. But in terms of the next rotation cycle, we have Dynamax Bulbasaur, along with a new mystery Pokemon, which is probably going to be the same one from the previous rotation. And then after that, we have Dynamax Wooloo, Cryogonal, and Grookey, which are all going to be repeats. So basically the same thing that I said for Gigantamax Blastoise and Gigantamax Charizard, guys. Same thing applies to Venusaur. If you don't have enough candy, get the candy. If you have enough candy, don't worry about this at all. So we definitely have a lot going on with max battles. I feel like it's even more complicated than the legendary and mega raids, but it is what it is, guys. I feel like most of you are probably skipping this section in the video, so that's perfectly fine. We do have max hours, though, which are going to be taking place every Monday from 6-7 p.m. local time. These are pretty similar to raid hours, but they do work a little bit differently. So in terms of the rotation cycle, we only have 2 Pokemon that are announced. We have Machop on the 6th and Squirtle on the 13th. The main incentive that I personally found for these max hours is that if you're struggling to track down any of these Pokemon specifically, like we have 5 in rotation right at one time, so like having these dedicated max hours just make it a little bit easier to focus on the hunt. Keep in mind though, we do have 3 mystery spots here, so any predictions, I would love to hear about them in the comment section down below, but I am really hoping that one of these spots is going to be Beldum. Following that, let's go over the upcoming events for this month. The event windows are going to be based on your local time zone, so keep that in mind as we're going through these. The first event is going to be the New Year's event technically, but that's also going to end on like the 1st, so I'm not really going to cover that one. But following that, we're going to have the Fidough or Fidough Fletch event. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. This is going to be available from January 3rd to January 7th. The event is obviously going to debut Fidough and Dashbun, which are going to be Gen 9 Pokemon from Paldea. Pretty excited to see these Pokemon come into the game. Now, in terms of the bonuses though, guys, like I know this event doesn't seem that exciting, but when you look into it a little bit deeper, you'll realize it's actually one of the best events we're probably going to have for the entire year. The bonuses for this event are going to revolve around making nice curveball throws to unlock various perks. This is going to be a global challenge and it has 6 tiers, with the highest tier being 4 times catch experience and 4 times catch stardust. So for those of you out there who have been holding on to your lucky eggs and star pieces, this is going to be the best time to use them. Oh, and by the way, Voltorb and Electrike are both going to be shiny boosted during this event as well. So yeah, whole lot of stuff going on here, guys. In my opinion, this looks like an S tier event you will not want to miss. Now, following that, on January 5th, over the weekend, we're going to have Sprigatito Calm Day, which is going to be the first Calm Day of the year. This is going to skip the Gen 8 starter Pokemon, so yeah, pretty interesting how we're doing that. But, I mean, Sprigatito, guys, I love Sprigatito, one of my favorite Pokemon for sure. Now, in terms of the special bonus, we're going to get 3 times catch stardust, and its final evolution, Meowscarada, is going to be getting an upgrade for raids with Frenzy Plant. Meowscarada is also going to be getting access to its signature moveset, Flower Trick, which is going to be available to TM after the event starts. Unfortunately, nothing special was added to Flower Trick, even though in the main series game this move guarantees a critical hit every single time it's used, but I'm pretty sure at some point in the future we are going to get some nice adjustments to this moveset. So make sure to grab some good IV spreads for this right now, because even though it might not be as meta relevant, I guarantee in the future we're going to see that change. Now with that being said, I should most likely have another video going over some more tips and tricks to help you guys get prepared for this event, but fair warning, I might also just not do that video. I also have these bigger projects that I need to work on, and I think those are a lot more valuable for the channel. I think you guys are going to enjoy them a lot more. At the end of the day, guys, I am a one-man army. I do this all on my own, and sometimes that can be a little bit difficult to navigate. So just know that I'm doing my best, and if I don't upload certain event-based videos, there is usually a good reason behind it. I don't want to get into it as well, but I have been dealing with some personal stuff in my life recently, so it has been a little bit tougher to navigate all the other stuff as well. But hopefully things will be better in January, and we can continue pushing forward. I think we had a great year for 2024, and I'm looking forward to putting out even more content for 2025. Anyways, that was small vent, and now let's take a look at the next event, which is going to be the Fashion Week from January 10th to January 19th. So basically for this event, we haven't got the details just yet, but we have had Fashion Week in the past. Just expect more costume Pokemon and everyone's favorite Pokemon, Furfrou, because you definitely didn't get enough of this from your research breakthrough rewards, right? Well, jokes aside here, I'm actually kind of looking forward to shiny hunting Furfrou trims and the other costume Pokemon. Pokemon is a collection game after all, and I think after you've collected most of the meta-relevant options out there, well, you kind of need something else to focus on. And I think for me, at the stage that I'm at in the game, having played for over 8 years, this is kind of where I'm at, but I totally understand not everybody is excited about these costume Pokemon, or god forbid Furfrou. Now one day after this event starts, we are going to have Mega Gallade Raid Day, which we kind of touched on earlier, right? So in terms of the meta relevance, check out the Mega Raid section for Mega Gallade, but in terms of this Raid Day, we're going to get 5 additional orange passes like normal during the event window. These are going to be use it or lose it passes, pretty similar to what I talked about as well with the 2 free raid passes, which again, that is going to be added on, so you guys can actually have a total of 8 free raid passes to use during the day to raid Mega Gallade. That's more than enough to get the energy that you guys actually need. You could also use Pokegenie for additional raid support if you guys don't have that many players in your local area. I guarantee there's going to be people on there, at least at the beginning. Shiny Gallade isn't like a super rare Pokemon to have. Like, I know many people have gotten shiny rolls from different events, so I mean, it's not going to be like a super desirable Pokemon, but at the end of the day, guys, the passes are free. Might as well do them. You're probably going to get bonus experience and stuff like that. I see no reason not to participate, at least for the beginning, and just get your free passes done. Now, we're still talking about the Fashion Week event here, guys, because technically part 2 of it, and why the event is so long, is because we're going to get that Team Go Rocket Takeover event from January 15th to January 19th. Now, I hope that you guys have been holding on to your charge TMs. If you haven't, make sure to go out and do those mega raids like I talked about earlier, because pretty soon you're going to be able to TM Frustration Way on your Shadow Pokemon. The last Team Go Rocket Takeover event was in October. It has been a while to accumulate good stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, we're most likely going to get a new Shadow Legendary from Giovanni, and we're also going to have new rotations for the Team Go Rocket leaders as well as the grunts. This does mean that Shadow Beldum and Shadow Ralts are going to be going away, so make sure to get out there and farm even more rockets so you can get these elusive Shadow Shinies before they're gone. Hopefully you guys are a little bit luckier than I have been. I'm currently over odds right now on a Shadow Shiny during this rotation. I've done over 80 leader encounters without anything, guys. This is like 100% free to play too. I've not spent any Pokecoins on those rocket radars, so I've done this all the long way, and I'm telling you right now, it is really frustrating to go this dry. I'm probably even drier on Shadow Shiny Beldum because this Pokemon has been available in many past rotations, and I've struck out every single time too. So fingers crossed I can actually get this damn Pokemon before it leaves rotation, but I'm not holding my breath here. Now basically, to end things off for this event, we're also going to have a Shadow Raid Day on the 19th. It's most likely going to be a Shadow Legendary Pokemon. I have no idea what it's going to be, predictions down below as always, but I really hope it is not Lugia again. Kinda tired of that guy. Following that, from January 21st to January 26th, we're going to have the Steeled Resolve event. As the name would suggest, most likely going to be a Steel type focused event. On the 25th, we're going to have a Calm Day Classic. It's currently a mystery Pokemon. We have no idea what it's going to be. Maybe we've gotten leaks for it. I don't really know, but as always, guys, predictions in the comments down below would be appreciated. And then finally, from January 29th to February 2nd, we're going to have the Lunar New Year event. Kind of a short event. Usually this is a bit longer, but during this annual event, we do get increased odds of lucky friends and lucky trades, which is probably one of the best events to actually hunt for hundos and shundos, because you guys can do up to 100 trades per day. And if you really wanted to maximize your chances, I would really try to take advantage of that. I'm pretty sure I got at least one lucky hundo during that event this past year for 2024, which is a lucky hundo Dratini. That was pretty awesome. Now, that was because we had a dragon year for 2024. And for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with the whole, Lunar New Year, 2025 is going to be the year of the snake. So you can probably expect to see some snake-type Pokemon like Ekans or Seviper featured during this event. I think Zygarde technically counts as like a snake-type Pokemon. Probably not, but I'm just kind of thinking about it in its second form. In which case, hopefully there is some sort of bonus for Zygarde cells. That'd be amazing, but again, I'm not going to really expect that. So I do think we have a lot of interesting events upcoming for the month of January, and I hope you guys are excited for them, because I definitely am. Following that, though, to end things off for this video, let's go over the Spotlight Hours, which are going to be taking place every Tuesday from 6-7 p.m. local time. Shiny forms will be available for each of these featured Pokemon, so we'll start off with the first Spotlight Hour on January 7th, which is going to feature Kanto and Hisuian Voltorb, with the special bonus 2x Catch Stardust. So for the Hisuian Voltorb, when this evolves into Hisuian Electrode, this is ranked within the top 100 for the Open Great League, and it's also decent to have in the Ultra League as well. Now in terms of its Kanto variant, it does have play in the limited metas for the Great League, but it's not really that good in the Open. Now while the 2x Catch Stardust bonus is nice, I definitely don't think it's worth using star pieces on, especially because we have the Fidough Fletch event with 4x Catch Stardust and 4x Catch Experience. So it's going to be better to hold on to any extra star pieces for that event, and then if you have any that are left over, save those for a future Calm Day or at the end of a GBL season. A much better use, in my opinion, for your star pieces. Unless you're like a super hardcore pay-to-play player, then yeah, you can run these during this event if you want to. The next Spotlight Hour is going to be taking place on January 14th, which is going to feature the Pokemon Roselia with a special bonus 2x Catch Experience. So when evolved to Roserade with a Sinnoh Stone and 100 Candy, this is a decent Pokemon to have in the Open Ultra League, as well as a budget Grass and Poison type attacker in the Raid/Gym meta. When it comes down to the Open Ultra League, it does require a double Legacy moveset, and it's not like super meta relevant, so I wouldn't really worry about PvP too much. But for new and returning players out there, you guys can use this opportunity to build out your Grass and Poison type raid teams, at least temporarily. Just focus on catching high-level variants of Roselia and evolving them all the way up. Regardless of the IV spread, it's going to be a great strategy. The one downside here, though, is that Roserade does have a pretty big move pool, so be warned if you are low on charge TMs. I think it might be better to hold on to these for the upcoming Team Go Rocket Takeover event instead, rather than using them on Roserade. But if you are able to evolve them and get either a double Grass type moveset or a double Poison type moveset, then more power to you. Now in terms of the special bonus, basically the same thing that I said earlier for the Fidough Fletch event. We have 4x Catch Experience and 4x Catch Stardust, guys. It's much better to save your lucky eggs for that event rather than using them on a 2x Catch Experience Spotlight Hour. And if you're actually watching this video after that event has already passed, then I would still recommend just saving these for friendship bonuses and, during a Calm Day when we get 3x Catch Experience. There's definitely better opportunities out there. Following that, on January 21st, we're going to have Paldean Wooper with the special bonus 2x Catch Candy. So when evolved to Clodsire, this is the number #1 Pokemon to have for the Open Great League. It's also ranked in the top 50 right now for the Open Ultra League, and you don't need to have the Legacy moveset Megahorn either, so I mean, when it comes down to it, this is by far one of the best Spotlight Hours we have in the entire month, guys. I definitely expect a lot of players to be running this after this Spotlight Hour, so do not miss out on your opportunity to get this amazing Pokemon. Like, seriously, Clodsire is phenomenal. And then finally, for our last Spotlight Hour, we're going to have Young Goose, which is going to be on January 28th with the special bonus 2x transfer candy. So what evolved to Gumshoes? This Pokemon isn't really meta relevant for anything, but it is a spitting image of our next president here in the United States, so I kind of feel like that was intentional. But we do have the special bonus during the Spotlight Hour of 2x transfer candy, so the best way to take advantage of this would be to create a search tag, group together all of your rare Pokemon and extra legendary Pokemon leading up to this event, and bonus points if you actually mirror trade these with somebody else beforehand as well. So basically, in conclusion, I think January definitely has some nice highlights along with some low points as well. I think the pacing does feel appropriate though, given that February is going to have Go Tour for Unova, and that's going to be a pretty big month of content. So take breaks where you need to during this month, gear up for the upcoming Unova Tour next month. I am going to be attending it in person on Saturday, February 22nd. I'm definitely not much of a meet and greet YouTuber like most of the others, but if you do see me in the park fast catching, you're more than welcome to tag along with my group. We had a few players last year who did this, and they had a great time, so totally up to you. Either way, I'm going to be there playing with friends and catching as many Pokemon as I possibly can. I'll most likely be making more videos as we get closer to that event, but as of right now, if there's anything you're looking forward to specifically for the month of January, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you still want to check out some content in the meantime, I'm going to recommend these two videos right here. But before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all real soon in the next one.